But here's the deal: is that what separates me, what makes me better, is the value that I provide the people in my world, and the amount of care that I have for the people in my world, and that is what makes me better than go pick your 10 top realtors in the city.
Welcome to Agent Success Podcast. If you're a real estate agent looking to succeed in today's crazy market, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we talk with successful real estate agents willing to share their expert insights, trade secrets, and mindset that help them to succeed. There's no fluff, just straight to the point content that prioritizes one thing above all, your success. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase.
Welcome to another episode of Cut to the Chase. I'm your host, Tim Chase, at agentsuccesspodcast.com. And today I have a very special guest with me. And Mr. Special Guest named Daniel Pitrone. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Daniel Pitrone.
Okay, cool. How long have you been doing real estate, Daniel?
I got my license in June of 2011. I did a couple of years of property management, and I really got into sales in early 2013. So I guess I've been in sales now for whatever that is, 11 years, a little over 11 years.
Yeah. So you started in property management.
I did.
Okay. That's you started off like a Spartan warrior or something before you go to,
Well, 2011 was an interesting year because I got married in 2011, got my license in 2011, and my wife was actually still finishing up her last year of college, and so I wanted to find something that I felt at that time was going to be a little bit more consistent than jumping right into the sales gig. And we bought our first house in 2011, and so 2011 was obviously a pretty big pivotal year. And so,
how did you buy a house not having a job?
That's a really good question.
Was this in the?
There's a story behind it. I don't know if it's worth the time to share the story here and now.
So, a lot of things happened in 2011.
A lot of things
happened in 2011. What did you do before real estate?
The 9 months prior to real estate, I was a factory janitor.
What kind of? I don't know if I want to ask this, but what kind of factory?
They made primarily metal stamping, and they made medical products for the most part. Was their main product they did here in Colorado Springs.
Medical products. So you had to keep a very antiseptic tape.
No, I know because they had all of that, under control. I just really kept the factory floor. I literally ran a mop on a factory floor for the 9 months prior to real estate.
Wow. I did that one time at a college actually. Mm-hmm. I would go to work all day. I had school like after work, so I did my classes after that. But the days I wasn't in class, I would I mopped and did the floors and learned the halls of a lot of the colleges I had never been around before. Yeah. So yeah, it was very, very, very interesting. It's at first, I thought it sucked, and after a while, I actually kind of took pride in my dust mop ability, and it's like I had a good flow.
You had a good flow.
I had a good flow going.
Hit the corners right. Get the flick.
Yeah, you've been there.
I've been there.
You've been there. So, did you know somebody in real estate before you started, or did you just say, "Hey, I like houses and everything else is happening in 2011. I may as well start in real estate in 2011 too"?
I think it was kind of a combination of two or three things. It was a previous mentor when I was growing up. I was a teenager. He kind of always talked about real estate. He always talked about rental properties in particular and passive income in particular. And so that kind of always intrigued me.
And it was like a family friend or just a like teacher or something?
Yep, family friend. I guess a friend of my dad, but I think that by the end of the time I was in Ohio, he's probably closer to my friend than even my dad's, but generation above me. And so that was one catalyst. Number two, I was in a serious relationship and I was engaged and I needed to find something that I could make some money at, and I did not go to college. And so I saw real estate as an opportunity.
Did anybody tell you that most realtors don't make money? Did they leave that detail out?
Some people did tell me that, but it didn't dissuade me from the fact that there was money to be made in if you're willing to kind of put the hustle in and do it. So I got my real estate license in 2011. And so there was kind of a combination of those two things. I didn't go to college. I didn't really have another trade. I was 23. Yeah. I was pretty young. Yeah. And so I jumped in with both feet when it comes to the real estate school, and then got the job in property management, which is kind of a weird way to start in Colorado because
usually you graduate or you work up to property management.
Is that how it goes?
Yeah, I think most people don't decide I'm going to step into the one area that's guaranteed to have lawsuits, pissed off clients, and daily problems.
And court case time.
Exactly.
Court time. Yeah. But I did, and it was a great way because I feel like it actually gave me an opportunity to kind of meet a lot of people in the industry and kind of get a sense for the industry, even though management and sales are maybe opposite sides of the same coin. I mean, they're related and they share a lot of common themes, but obviously very, very, very different in practice.
How many properties did you did you manage them? Did you assist in managing? Like, what was your actual role?
I was a property manager. I was in Woodland Park, so I was taking care of the company's basically mountain properties.
Sure.
When I started, there was about 100 properties, but then they actually purchased a second a Woodland Park-based property management company, and we added like 80 or 90 properties. At one point, I was
almost 200 properties.
I was actually, briefly, I was over 200 properties, but what happens in those, and most of them were single family, some fourplexes, but no large multifamily. And so, but as what happens in those turnover situations, you lose a lot of owners. And especially coming into 2012 and 13, I started to see the handwriting on the wall because the people who had survived the Great Recession were starting to begin offloading their properties, and so every month I was losing 2, 3, 4
property
properties.
values are starting to recover. People are like, "Hey, I got to get out of this now. I've recovered my $40,000 loss over the last 5 years."
Exactly, that happened a lot. I had a lot of owners who never wanted to be landlords, and they're some of the worst type of landlord. They just, it was their personal house. They tried to sell it, they couldn't. They put it into management at a necessity rather than out of
because if you went in 2008 and you wanted to buy another house, you had the means to buy another home that you wanted to move into and keep that house, the first house, then you would have had a very hard time selling your house.
Correct.
In that time frame. So it would make sense to turn that into
a rental.
Right. At least until the market recovered a little bit.
Right, and I had many owners during that period of time that were losing a couple $100 every month. And then when I had to bring them another property bill, hey, we got to replace a water heater. It's like, man, I lose $400 a month, and I got to. So a lot of the owners,
which is cheaper than losing $40,000 on the sale.
It is, and over the course of that period of time, they were able to hold on to it, and a lot of them, when they were selling in 2013 and 14, they did make a lot of their money back, and so they were able to survive, and real estate, as it always does, recovered.
Yeah, well, it does always recover, right? Mm-hmm. Was that a lot of hours? Because that sounds difficult.
I think it was like same as what I'm doing now, 35, 40 hours a week. I don't think it was excessive. The managers that were all part of that company, we all took shifts being on call. And so in some of the on-call weeks, you could definitely log more.
You get a pipe break on Saturday at
all
midnight.
That stuff. Yeah. All that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, I don't feel like I worked excessive hours in that in that job. I think that the biggest thing, as long as you stay on top of your stuff, you were fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always thought property management would be the most difficult thing to do in real estate. Not that the actual act of it, but all of the extra, the extra stuff that comes with it. The landlords, the tenants, the carpet that peels up, do I get my deposit back? Like all the stuff, right?
I would say that what I find to be the biggest difference between the management and the sales is that most often a seller wants to sell their house. Most often a buyer wants to buy a house.
Sure.
And so I feel like at the closing table, there is kind of this symbiotic relationship. We're all working towards the same goal because the seller wants to sell.
We want to close this thing.
Exactly. But I think the difference in property management was that the sellers were always hesitant to do any type of repairs. The sellers always thought the owners were always thought the tenants were the problem. And then vice versa, I kind of played middleman because the tenants always came in to deliver their rent. And whenever they deliver their rent, they also wanted to have
by the way done. The door squeaks.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I always felt that there was tension between tenants and owners, and as the property manager, I was there to kind of like mitigate and help. So it was kind of like taking shit from both sides,
Both sides are like, tell Daniel about it. Hey, you tell them this. You tell them this. You're like, dude,
exactly.
Can you guys just,
And so the difference here is that when you're working with, especially when you're working with a good realtor on the other side of a transaction, is that everyone's pointed towards the same goal, and for the most part, everyone's happy when you get to the closing table.
Yeah.
I felt that that is, if you really want to look at the overall picture of it, to me, that's where the stress comes in from property management, because you have to constantly turn around and deliver bad news to somebody.
Yeah.
And hey, your tenant didn't pay rent. Hey, the owner's not willing to fix that, right? And there was always this kind of tension, which I think.
So is that what drove you to decide to do sales, or was it just a new opportunity, or what happened?
I think that it was a new opportunity. A couple of things happened simultaneously. One, as I started to see my portfolio shrink, and my compensation was based on what my portfolio brought in.
Right, yeah.
I got my paycheck started to go down every month. That was number one. Number two, my wife had graduated school and she had become gainfully employed, and she was making roughly the same amount of money that I was making in property management in her new job. And so between those two things, it seemed like the opportunity to get into sales. And so we had consistent income, and my income was shrinking on the property management side, and I saw the handwriting on the wall that, hey, this market is back, or at least we're in an upward trajectory now.
We're at a point where and actually 13 and 4. I mean, rates were very good at that point, right?
I think in the 5s.
Yeah. The rates were very good, and house prices were still very reasonable.
So good, compared to today.
Well, because we're coming out of where they just took an absolute nosedive, right? And now, so they've recovered a little bit. The government's still artificially pushing rates with mortgage bonds, right?
Right.
So they're still. I mean, it's a good environment to buy, right, and good environment to sell, for that matter.
Correct. Yeah, right? And so I saw the handwriting on the wall. So the combination of those things coming together got me into the sales market.
Yeah.
Quick side fact is that actually one of the things that also pushed me over was I had an agent who called me to make a referral to me when I was in the management world, and he was out of Arizona, and he was with EXP, and he told me all about EXP, and so I kind of got excited about EXP. And funny fact is that I was the first agent to do any sales in Colorado for EXP. My employing broker was in Niwot, Colorado, up near Boulder.
Yeah.
I was the first agent to open PPAR, PPMLS to
really?
EXP.
Wow.
And matter of fact, I got on the phone with Brian Colhane, one of the founders of EXP, and he goes, "We're not going to pay to open PPAR, you pay it, and out of your first deal, you can just keep all of your first transaction rather than pay a split." And so I paid the $2,500.
That's back when they were very small.
Very small. And then,
because right now, this last year, I believe they were percentage-wise the most profitable company.
Sure.
In North America.
In North America, I was in Colorado. Yeah, because now they have like 70,000 agents or something like that.
So it could have been like Amway. You could have been
one
of the original Amways.
I look back as I could have been the head of Amway in Colorado for EXP.
I could have been the Amway guy. Right. But guess what? It probably not the journey you're supposed to be on. And
well, I tell you is that I'm too social of a guy. I can't work from home. I quickly realized that. I was there for like 9 or 10 months. I think I did 9 transactions or something like that. And I was like, I need people.
I need to be around.
And I need my employing broker not to be so inaccessible, right? As far as I wasn't a new agent per se because I had my license for over 2 years.
But you were new.
But I was new to sales.
Yeah.
And so I needed more support.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. And did you then go to KW is where you're at now, or was there any I guess how long have you been at KW?
I've been at KW since 2017.
Didn't you opened your own place, didn't you? You and Aaron, I thought you guys opened your own company.
Exactly right. So Aaron, so that's where I went after EXP. Is that Aaron Diem came back to Colorado Springs from the Durango area, and him and I opened our brokerage, and we were there from I guess end of 14 to 17 when I was recruited.
I think it was, if I remember, it was like S3 or S2.
Exactly.
So S3?
S3 Realty.
S3, right. Yeah. And then you guys had the little college and kind of connected to it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. So you went from property management to EXP to
3 years independent, more or less.
Yeah. And then you went over to
KW. I've been there since 2017.
Okay. So you've been there for quite a while.
In this industry, yes. 7 years is a long time.
In this industry, that's a very long time. Right? That's a very long time. So with selling right now, have you ever entertained getting a property management portfolio again for yourself?
No, because other people have asked me that, and I told my wife is the only way I would ever do that is if I were to be able to buy like a portfolio of like 75 properties. I think until you get to that point, it's so unprofitable.
Yeah.
And you really do need, even to run that many doors, you need staff. You need at least a staff member.
Yeah.
And I just think that unless you're making
a decent amount of money to
be able to afford that, it's just not worth it. Growing a portfolio organically seems like a gargantuan task.
Yeah. So what do you pay for property? Like what is if I wanted you to manage my property, is it a percentage or is it flat? Like just on average, what does it look like?
It's a great question, and it's all over, and because some management companies go with kind of a lower percentage and a higher fee-based model, and some people will go with from my experience, they'll go with a higher percentage model. So I mean, you can pay anywhere from between 8 and 12% of gross rents.
Okay,
but a lot of companies still have like a base. They're saying like, hey, we don't make less than $100 a month. So even if your property only rents for $800 a month, I'm still making $100 a month. So that's pretty common. Leasing fees, renewal fees, all kinds of different little fees that can go along with it. So when you actually break it all down, I would say that the average is probably around 10%. Although
that's really when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. If you only have, let's say you have one rental property. That's very inexpensive to have somebody manage it for you and take a huge headache away from you. But on the other side of that, if you're a realtor and you're only managing one property, that's very unprofitable, and a lot of work.
Right. Correct.
So it's almost like that. Again, for the property owner, it seems, that's a good deal. 10%, no problem. You take care of a ton of the headache, you take care of the legality of it.
Right. I think the accounting, honestly, is probably the biggest thing that's overlooked. I think at the end of the year, when a management company gives you your packet with all of your rental income, all of your expenses,
you take it to your CPA.
You take it to your CPA. I honestly think that might be some of the biggest benefit. Not to mention for tenant eviction protection and all the other things that they offer, tenant screening. But the ongoing management of a property is not that difficult. Like once you have a good tenant in place, managing your own property is not that difficult.
Yeah.
But I think that it's all the things that happen, especially to end of year bookkeeping, and then of course if there is ever a problem tenant, and then placing good tenants. That's where property managers really shine. Getting a good tenant is gold.
Yeah.
And if you can rely on a good manager to do that, that's amazing. Bad tenants are horrible, but you need a good manager to get them out.
Yeah.
And then the end of year bookkeeping are all huge.
Interesting. So do you recommend people, because you've been on both sides now, right? Mm-hmm. And you've helped people buy investment properties and sell investment properties, all that. Would you recommend to a client, for the average client, that they should use a property management company?
If you're not local, for sure.
Okay.
And then if you are local, but you are in a position where you have time on your hands, you could potentially manage your own property. But then if you are full-time, if you're working full-time and you got a family that you're dealing with, I would definitely encourage you to not try not to put too much on your plate. And that's it's something that you can very easily get off your plate for that, whatever it is, $100 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
100, 200.
If you're retired and you got a couple of rental properties and you don't mind kind of tinkering around with it and keeping your own books and doing all that stuff, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But for the average person out there who is busy, it's an easy thing to get off your plate, and these companies do a great job doing taking care of your property.
Okay, well that's good, and you having that background really helps out. Now, you said you're from Ohio.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you said you were from Ohio. Is it the ghetto part of Ohio, the farm part of Ohio, or the nicer city part of Ohio?
The middle one, the farm part of Ohio.
The farm part of Ohio.
So I actually grew up my from that I was like, I don't know, maybe 2 to 10 or 11. I grew up in inner city Akron, which is close. I was like on the border of the ghetto side of Akron, Ohio.
Yeah.
And then when I was 11 or so, we moved south to rural Ohio.
There's a lot of huge farmland out there, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Yeah. I've driven through some of it, and it was, I'll tell you, last time, maybe not the last time, but one of the last times that I had actually flown in to Ohio, I noticed a couple things. First off, it was so green.
Yes,
it was
very green there.
So green. We're flying in, my plane's, I'm like, man, I wish Colorado was this green. Colorado's it's a little gray and a little brown.
Yep.
With some spatterings of green.
Right.
I was like, dang, this is really nice. I saw a river with people doing river.
Yeah.
River rowing, you know what I mean? Because it's so flat. It wasn't I grew up in Canyon City where the river, you can't exactly run that kind of boat in that river. Right?
I was telling somebody today that I grew up a mile from the Tuscarawas River, which flew into the Walhonding, which flew into the Ohio. And man, the Tuscarawas River, if my memory serves correct, it's been 15, 20 years now, but it's like, man, even at the narrowest point, that river was 30 to 40 feet across, and as wide as point, 60, 70 feet across, and it was moving.
They were massive.
Massive. And I came out here to Colorado, I saw a river, I'm like, I can walk across that.
It's a stream.
It's a stream. It's a fast-moving stream.
This is an offshoot where we irrigate things.
It's pretty, but it's totally different.
Yeah.
And because the rivers back east are large and wide and brown, and the rivers out here are clean and shallow and fast and just very, very different.
Yeah. So, interesting. Do you ever do any business? Let me ask a couple. Are you licensed in any other states, like Ohio, as an example, or do you do any business or refer stuff or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't. I am not licensed in any other states. I have contemplated. As a matter of fact, I have an unread email at the bottom of my inbox from like 3 years ago that I.
Nice that you keep it around.
that I consider. I did consider.
I'm gonna get to that one of these days.
I'm gonna get to it one of these days. I did consider getting licensed in Ohio, but I've never done it. And I just make referrals for the most part to answer the question.
So you refer, like, say, friend or family member, you refer them to somebody out there, and that's it. Okay, well, that's a pretty clean, easy way to do it, as opposed to trying to do business in a place you're not familiar with, or you don't know what even if you were familiar one time, maybe you don't know what the exact market conditions are at that time. Now, moving into sales, did you give me like some sort of lesson? Did you learn something good? Like meaning, I realized that I need to stay in touch with people. I realized I need to use a CRM. I realized that people don't like when I call them at 10 o'clock at night, or when I do a pop by at Sunday. Does it make sense? Like what was some stuff that you had to kind of learn?
So it's funny you asked the question, because even before Aaron and I opened S3 Realty, I had gone through his real estate school, his online version, and he had told me while I was going through school to read the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the Red Book, and so I started reading that as I was going through school, and then I got my license, and then I got into property management, and I kind of put that book on the shelf. And it was actually really funny because I wasn't having a lot of success or a lot of traction in sales in that first year. And I remember getting a call, like we all do, from somebody selling some system and some software, and it was $1,500.
There's a whole lot of shiny objects.
A lot of shiny objects, right? And $1,500 was a lot of money to me at the time, and so it's a lot of money to me now. And everything the guy was saying on the phone was like, "Oh, this is ringing a bell." He's talking about a database. He's talking about a CRM. Talking about lead capture. And I said, "Okay, I'll go for it." So I did, and it was a terrible system, it was a terrible product. But he did help me kind of, I guess, rekindle in my mind this idea of having a database and having a CRM. Again, I'm 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 months into this sales adventure.
Okay, so you after you had gotten out of property management, and now you're doing sales.
Right. No, I'm doing sales. And so it was not a great solution for me in the end, but it kind of reminded me of what I was reading in the MREA, and so I picked up the MREA again.
So it was a $1,500 for you to remember what you should have done.
Exactly right. I paid a $1,500 stupid tax, and so I started rereading the book, and then it all started to kind of click. And
I had a realtor tell me one time, every education costs money.
It does. And you know what's funny is the mentor I mentioned earlier, who's told me that, tell me about real estate and rental income and passive income. He said you pay for education one way or the other. You can either you can go and you can go to university and you can pay for it, or you will make a lot of mistakes along the way and you will pay for it.
Yeah. But guess what? That cost, one may be more than the other, but the cost is there.
The cost
is real.
The cost is real.
Interesting.
Sure.
Okay. So you picked up MREA and started rolling with that.
Yeah, and then I started working with Aaron Diem, and him and I started to kind of really kind of build out a better database and really start communicating with it effectively.
Okay. And then, so are you using a CRM now?
I am. I use it. It's kind of, I think, like a lot of agents. I have kind of piecemealed my system and it works for me.
I always say the best CRM is the one you use.
Exactly.
Right? I don't care if it's recipe cards that you keep in an old Rolodex or whatever works for you. If you use it, it works.
So I use a combination of a software called Contacts Plus, which I love, and it is a contact manager, more like Google Contacts or Apple Contacts than it is really like a CRM.
Okay,
but that's actually where I keep my data clean. It is kind of my master file, if you will.
Gotcha.
It's the easiest place for me to manipulate data. It's the easiest place for me to manipulate tags and keep my database segmented.
What's the name of it again?
Contacts Plus.
Contacts Plus. Okay.
And if anybody out there is going to do it, contact me first. I think I have an affiliate link for it. But
it sounds a little AOL-ish. Is it old?
It's not. No.
Okay.
Contacts Plus is it's amazing for.
It's like Batteries Plus, but for contacts.
Exactly. Okay. That's their slogan. I'm pretty sure.
We're like Batteries Plus, but for your contacts.
One thing I love about it is that if anybody is a cross-platform person here, meaning that you're an Apple or a Microsoft or Google Contacts, what it does, it actually will keep all of your contacts like 95, 99% sync between all of these systems, which I find very, 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 very beneficial.
Yeah.
And so I can open up my Apple contacts and I can say, hey, look, and I have 2,275 contacts in my database. And I can open up Google Contacts and it'll show the same number, or Microsoft People and it'll be the same. And so I find that super, super valuable.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's $100 a year, and I think it's really cool. Also, of course, you can merge duplicates, but even beyond that, whatever email address that's associated with it, it'll go out there and ping it for social media, and it'll suck in social media profiles, which I think is super cool.
Ooh.
And it will ping.
If you're listening to this and you're not using this Battery Plus for contacts, you need to be using this.
It's super cool.
It sounds very useful.
It's very useful, and it will also ping their email address, and it will tell you whether an email address is likely undeliverable, because an email, and in real estate, if anybody's been in real estate, you move a brokerage, you move something. I have cleaned up a lot of contact information because of the system. The first time I utilized it, it probably took me 3 weeks to go through all of the recommendations to get things really cleaned up.
Get everything clean, and now it's just a maintenance.
That's
awesome.
And then in there, I can segment my database, and everything from there via another piece of software goes into MailChimp and to KW Command, which is my.
Okay, that's KW's
KW CRM.
CRM. Okay,
and so KW Command is where I handle my sales pipeline and my phone calls.
Okay,
and then MailChimp is where I deliver my email. MailChimp is just probably the best email editor and the one I'm used to utilizing.
Yeah, but everything's syncing.
And it's syncing two-way, which is really cool. So if I change somebody's phone number inside of KW Command, it syncs with Contacts Plus. And
so it's a back forth.
It's a back forth.
Wow, that's really awesome.
It is really awesome. I have a pretty sweet setup when it comes to my contacts. I could put you in my phone today and just tag you with A list or B list, and those are my two syncing tags. And then you will get my next set of emails. You'll automatically be added to my quarterly follow-up phone call program.
That's nice.
It is really nice. It took me a long time to figure out how to get my database dialed in, but it's pretty dialed in now.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, will it go through your emails, where you use Gmail or Outlook or whatever, and pull your contact? I've seen people use different like EverContact or something like that, where it scrapes all the emails you've sent or communicated with people with.
Yes and no. So because I have my Contacts Plus set up with my different Gmail accounts and my Apple account, all of my contacts are in Contacts Plus, obviously. Now, anybody that I've chosen to sync to KW Command, they have a timeline in there that is connected to my Gmail account. And in my timeline of my contacts history, I do have all the emails that I have communicated with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does.
It sounds very clean. Is it an app you have to put on your phone, or
Contacts Plus?
Yeah.
You have the option to. I have it on my phone. They have a nice business card scanning option, and so I have it. You don't have to, but it is an application on your phone, but it's a web-based. When I sit down in the morning, I open up my Gmail, I open up my calendar, I open up Contacts Plus.
Yeah.
And then on a different browser, I open up PPMLS, I open up CTME contracts, and I open up KW Command. And I work out of those 6 tabs on 2 different screens. That's why I'm doing this.
Pretty much all the time.
It's
here and here.
Yeah, those 6 tabs are open almost all the time, and I can run my business out of those 6 tabs, and then once or twice a month, I'm in MailChimp to send out a big email blast.
Gotcha. So you're saying, you say list A, list B, list C, whatever it is in MailChimp. You design it in there and send that out.
I do.
To your people. And then KW Command is more, I'm tracking my calls and notes for potential clients.
Yeah, it is phone calls. It is smart plans but for pretty specific things, which we can get into in a minute if you want to.
Yeah.
It is for opportunities, which is kind of our sales pipeline software in there. And it's basically anybody who mentions to me that they want to buy or sell real estate, it's basically my whiteboard. If you go into an agent's office and you see a big whiteboard up there with all of their potential, their pipeline, I have something like that, but it's digital inside of Command. And
so that's where you're keeping track of. You're saying, I've contacted this person so many times. All of that's KW Command, right?
Yes.
Okay. So does let's say you were to do you have to manually log that? Let's say you send the person an email through. You said you use MailChimp, right?
If MailChimp will not go through command, and it won't show up in their timeline.
Okay, so it doesn't push to command saying you sent these people an email.
Correct. But if I go over to my Gmail, where I run my business from, my business suite in Gmail, I send them an email, it will show up in command.
Okay.
Now, even if they were to, but it's funny because if I send a letter, an email out through MailChimp, and they were to respond to it, and then I were to respond to them in Gmail, because when they respond, it doesn't go to MailChimp, it goes to my Gmail, then that would show up in command.
Because it's going through Gmail at that point.
Correct.
Gotcha. Sounds like you've worked very, very detailed to dial in your system.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they just say, I'm going to plug in, use this, and then it doesn't really work for me. And this is what I see agents do, is like they get super hyped about a CRM, about a system, and they work really hard at it for a month. Maybe 3 months. I'll say 3 months to give them some, a little bit of grace. But at that point, it doesn't work for their day. It doesn't work for the way they work anymore, and they kind of fizzle out. But you've said, I need these different pieces for me to be able to operate.
And what I'll tell you is that most CRMs are so big and they're so powerful and there's so much data that you can put into them and then what we always find is we're managing data in two places, right? Yeah. We're managing data in our CRM, and we're also managing data on our phone, because most of us live off of our phone.
Yep.
And most CRMs nowadays do have an app for your phone, but it's still not as nice as your native phone operating system. And so that was the biggest. But in 2019, I went on a mission to solve that. I want to be able to message people from my phone, and I want to be able to add somebody to Google Contacts on my phone, and I want it to be in my database. And I don't want to double data entry. I set on a mission to solve that, and I feel I have a pretty good system.
So there was a. It's interesting about probably I don't know, 5 years before that, there was a CRM out that Compass Real Estate ended up buying. I can't remember the name of it, but I actually used it for a little while. It was amazing. It was an amazing CRM system. But one thing they did, and they've kind of, I don't know if the phone carriers did this or what, but it used to, I'd have their app on the phone. I'd make a phone call on my phone, and it would tag them in the CRM that I made that phone call.
Oh, interesting. Command has something similar, and I actually use this quite a bit. So inside the KW Command app, I can go into the app, and then I can scroll down to see who I need to call.
Place the call from the app.
Correct, and then it will log the call in the CRM, even though obviously it goes.
I think phone carriers had a kind of claim privacy issues, and so they didn't allow you to do that anymore. But sounds like you got a pretty slick plan put into place.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody that holds you accountable to that, or do you hold yourself accountable to it?
I don't have anybody that holds me accountable to it.
So you just like to eat and feed your family, so you do it?
Correct. Gotcha. My wife has since come home from her teaching job, and we live 100%.
She's like, my accountability is coming home every night, and me being able to have a house and everything else. Yeah,
exactly.
So with clients, do you have? You mentioned smart plans. So you said smart plans. What is a smart plan?
So smart plan is basically KW's, I don't know what you want to call it. You can go in there and build out your follow-up plan.
Okay.
And so their smart plans are pretty linear and pretty much a step after step type process. But what is kind of cool about it is that because KW is so big, a lot of people have built their own specific smart plans for certain applications, and they share them on basically smart plan marketplace. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of probably tens of thousands.
You can go
of smart
see
plans.
other people's smart plans.
Exactly.
So you don't have to really have to build your own. You can almost mimic somebody and then kind of add or subtract.
Correct.
At that point.
And so then when you're in that smart plan, I have used them to actually promote events. I do a couple events a year. Yeah. And I like to do them because I can build out like 6 or 7 or 8 emails and or text messages that go through a platform called Twilio, which is the
phone and text. Yeah,
exactly. And so I can build out if I'm having an event in, let's say, September, I can go back into like June. I can build out an 8 or 9 touch system of texts and emails, and even phone calls that then will manually pop up that I have to manually make the phone call in my smart plan, and then I can just say, hey, everyone that I want to put on this event will go on that.
Can you dictate? I only want people who have closed a transaction with, or other data points? You
can, because inside of the kit, if you have all of that data logged into your command system, certainly you can.
Okay.
I just keep an events tag, and basically events tag in my book is everyone who's on my A list and everyone who's local.
Gotcha.
And so
and that's who that goes.
And that's who that goes to.
So every agent at KW then can say, I want to, this Christmas I'm renting a movie theater and Santa Claus is coming, right? So I want to, starting in November, send something out to everybody, or and it's going to automatically, starting in November, start dripping. Or
Correct.
I want to have a gigantic. Oh, you just recently did a Labor Day thing.
We did Labor Day barbecue.
Yeah. So you did a Labor Day barbecue. So would that be something that would fall into this smart plan?
Yeah.
And then so it would trigger you to make calls, but then the system would automatically text and email for whatever time frame you set up. I want to set it up every 15 days for the next, for the
Correct.
last.
So
okay.
first, so if we're holding it at the end of August, beginning of September, your Labor Day barbecue, then you go back to probably the beginning of July and say send the first email, and then 10 days later we send a second email, and then 7 days later we send a third email. 7 days later we send a text, and then it's email, text, and then it's like email, phone call for everyone on that list, right? And then maybe a final text.
Do you find that easier than, because you had mentioned MailChimp. So is that more of a one-time blast, whereas KW Command's more like I can set up like you say, smart plan, a project kind of thing?
Correct. So MailChimp I use primarily, because of the way that both of them work, I use them for different applications.
Okay.
I do a monthly market update email, and I do that out of MailChimp. Because that one involves a lot more photos, involves an infographic, involves a few other things.
Manipulation
of the actual
Gotcha.
template and the data is much better for that purpose is much better in MailChimp.
Gotcha.
And then I have a couple of emails that go out like every 6 months.
Okay.
Basically my offerings, and those go out like every 6 months. And so I have 6 emails that kind of are on that basis. Okay. I've built them once in MailChimp, and the
template's there. You fill in the template, and it's good to go.
Correct.
So the email builder itself, and I've noticed that with some CRMs, the email builders suck. They totally suck in a lot of them. To where it's like you can do basic stuff, but like in ours, it's pretty basic. You can't do totally awesome stuff.
Yeah,
right?
same in Command.
So like Constant Contact, you're using MailChimp, and there's dozens of other ones that actually do very good at email, the manipulation, the building of the email, and what you can do within the email. And I've also noticed some of the more dedicated email platforms. The deliverability seems to be better. Like when you build it, it fits within the screen of the user, whether it be Gmail or on a phone or on a tablet or an Outlook or a Yahoo or whatever. So it seems like it's a more dynamic to fit to those things, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Thanks for being so open about how you're doing that. Let's look a little bit further into your actual client. Your client experience. Mm-hmm. So when you do you do closing gifts?
I do.
You do? What do you do for closing gifts?
People are going to laugh because it's just so cliche. But I actually do two. I've just recently started doing 2 different closing gifts. Both of them I really love. I use them at my house, and so I thought that they were going to be like the ones, and that is a Cutco knife.
Okay.
Because it's branded. They're going to use it all the time. My aunt got them from me when we got married.
Yeah.
I still use those knives today.
Did she brand her own name on them?
She did not, but I still think of her when I use those knives, so it works, okay?
Listen, Aunt Jane, I know you got this for me, and it's a nice knife.
Exactly. And the second thing I've been doing more recently is I've been giving a really nice blanket. It's a product called Equidane, and they are based out of Ecuador, made in Ecuador, and we shipped them here, and we've been giving those away as well. And I like them because they hang around the house. They're branded to me. Everyone loves them. I mean, it's just. I mean, and the blanket probably retails for $250. I'm one of the sales people for them, so I get a little break on it. But they're really nice high-end blankets, and there's a really nice high-end knife. And so I just it systematizes it for me. So I don't have to. I usually give like custom, like I try to find something that was really specific to those clients. But I found that I was always running around the day before closing, trying to put together really specials.
So you do that at the closing table. You take it to them after closing, or when do you give it to them?
So I give them the Cutco knife at closing, and I tell them I have another gift for them, and I come by typically 2 or 3 weeks later, whenever I'm in that part of town, and just I'm checking on you. I have something for you. And
I find that to be very smart to find a reason to pop by later.
Correct.
As opposed to here's your knife, and I may or may not talk to you.
Right. Yeah, it's one more touch before you kind of like do kind of go your own ways.
Go into the
but also, stuff. I mean, it's just a weird thing that you work with somebody for so long, especially on a buyer, right? That you show them so many houses, you go through the buy process, and even now that post-COVID, when we don't do closings together anymore very often, the closing certainly feels pretty anticlimactic, and so I agree. And then it's like really for a lot of agents, they just kind of disappear, right? I mean, and so having a little bit of follow up post closing, and then another reason to pop by and say hello is, I think it's a good way to kind of like, rather than close and then nothing, it kind of gives you a little step down to kind of like ease out of the relationship.
So you send them or you bring a knife. It's branded to you. You don't give them like bathroom towels branded to you, plates branded to you, bed sheets branded to you.
No cutting board.
Socks is branded to you. None of that. Okay, so it's just the knife.
The knife and the blanket.
And the blanket. Nice. And why did you do this Ecuadorian blanket? Is there a story behind that? Or you just thought it was a nice blanket?
It's a good question. My first trip to Ecuador in 2008, I was actually in Otavalo, Ecuador, and I bought a blanket very similar to the ones I'm giving away, and it quickly became a favorite blanket. And then the story behind the company a little bit, Equidane, is that my wife's family is from Ecuador, and her uncle was down there, and they had brought back half a dozen of them as Christmas gifts. And everyone who got one came back saying, "These are amazing blankets. Where do I get more?" And they're like, "Ecuador." and
8th Street, ask for one, he'll get it for you.
And so they brought in some more, and to give to sell to their friends and family, and it kind of grew organically from there.
Oh, that's cool.
And so if you go look up Equidane, you can look at the blankets. If you're interested in buying them, come talk to me. But because now that company has gone from simply retail to some business to business things where we can put like a nice, really, really nice leather embossed logo on there and information.
They stitch that on?
They stitch that on.
Nice.
And so it's a great, another just a really great grip that people are going to love. And we have 5 of them. We have one like on the foot of our bed. We have one in our van. Actually, the one that I bought, whatever it was, 13, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, is stuffed into the floorboard of our Honda Odyssey minivan, and it's like the blanket that is there to go camping, right?
Kids need a blanket or whatever. They're driving, they need to fall asleep, and you pull out the Ecuadorian blanket.
Exactly. We have one stuffed under our couch. We have one in our Airbnb, and there's a great blanket. It's a weird thing to say. I know. I listen to myself say it. I'm like, it's so weird to rave about a blanket, but it's actually such a nice blanket.
It's like the cashmere blankets, man. This is fantastic.
And so yeah, it's good.
Side note: how did you meet your wife? I didn't know she was from Ecuador.
She's not from Ecuador. My wife was born in Israel.
Your wife was born in Israel?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Her dad came from Ecuador.
Her dad came from Ecuador.
Years ago.
Okay, gotcha. So did you meet her in the States then?
Yeah, I met her here in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Mutual friends.
Wow, interesting. So she's from Israel. You grew up in the farmlands of Ohio, and somehow
she came out here for college to go to CC.
And you guys meet in Colorado Springs.
Correct.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty wild. So anything else that you do? Do you do birthdays? Do you do pop buys? Do you do annual let's review this phone calls? Kind of what's your game plan to stay in contact with people?
So I would say that I have it busted out into really kind of I would call my database falls into 4 categories, if you will, and that is everyone gets. You don't go into my database, and if I don't have your email address, I don't have your phone number. If I don't have those 2 things, you're not a lead, you're not a contact. You don't go into my database.
Gotcha.
You're
just a name.
You're just a name, and I can't. If I just have one or the other, I don't save you. I mean, I get leads sometimes from my listings or whatever. I just get an email address, and I'll respond to them
But they're not dropping into your system.
They will not go into my system until I tag them with my A list or my B list.
Okay.
And so I'm not gonna. Yeah, if you're not going to give me your information, if we're not going to have a deep enough conversation for me to get those 2 things with you, I'm not going to follow up with you.
Yeah.
And so ultimately they go into the database. I have 12 monthly market update emails that I put together. Usually send them out in the middle of the month. They are a recap of what me and my family did of the month before. There's usually about 10 to 12 photos of me and my family. And then below that, I have a real small real estate update, recapping the numbers. I put together an infographic. And that is, I would say, probably the real core of what I put out to everybody every single month. Then everybody goes on to a quarterly call program. I would say that I'm about 50% on that.
Okay. Well, that's the thing is that grows into a monster at some point. Like to where if you're calling, I mean that's a lot.
I have like I'm going to check, but I have like 780 something people who I'm actually marketing to on any given month. I get to a lot of people in my call list and I say, that guy was whatever, an online lead. I'm not calling him. Yeah. But my A list gets the quarterly calls. So the quarterly calls.
Is it more personal, or do you have something to deliver them during that quarterly call? Like, did you call and say, your zip code's doing this, or did you hear about that, or is it more, hey, I'm just checking on you and your family?
It can be a combination of if there's something happening in the real estate world, then I always kind of have that prepped.
Yeah.
I use the Ford acronym. I mean, I am family, occupation, recreation, dreams.
Yep.
I think it's a great acronym to kind of stick to and use. I feel like most people are always happy to catch up.
Yeah.
And so I think that I've built that relationship with probably 300 of my 700 people. I can just call and just shoot the breeze, and see how they're doing.
And so, just real quick, are you calling them out of command then?
I am.
So, because I was going to say you're going to have to see all the Ford data to be able. Cause you can't remember 700 people that intimately, right?
Correct.
So you have to see that. You make your call. You have it in front of you. Hey, you guys still traveling and whatever it is.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Gotcha.
Beyond that, for everyone who's local in the Springs, I have them on the Boomerang drip, and I update that. I tell myself I'm going to do it only once a quarter, but it probably actually only happens maybe 3 times a year.
You do monthly on Boomerang?
I do monthly on Boomerang, but then I'm maintaining those tags in Contacts Plus. Yeah. So people are kind of constantly, if they move out of state, they're falling off the Boomerang, right? And if they are just closed with me and they're here in town, then they go on the Boomerang. So I have to update that list inside of Boomerang every quarter or something like that. So I have that kind of going on the background. I also have a paper newsletter that gets done for me by a company, and I mail that out to, again, my local A-list people.
You're doing a lot to stay in contact with people.
I do. People don't forget me. Yeah. I have had people come up to me and say, "Who does your marketing?" And I say, "Me." They're like, "Wow, I just cannot get away from you."
But it's like, man, look, me and my family tried moving 3 times to get away from you. Every time you find us. But it's good because most people don't. Most people don't have. They have an idea and not a plan, right? So that I'm going to do this idea, but you have a plan. Like this is it. I got these 7 steps, and that's what I do.
And anybody who's listening to this who wants my plan, I'm happy to email it to you, and I'll let you know exactly what the emails that I send when I send them, and how I created them. And so
you know what's interesting about that? Every time I talk to a successful, confident, and good real estate agent, they never have a problem sharing what they do. It's usually the people that feel like there's some sort of secret in this business.
Yeah, there is.
And what I was told, like 2 weeks ago, was like the secret is hard work.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about you working harder than me. So it doesn't matter.
We had that Labor Day barbecue at our house recently, and my brother-in-law, who bought a house with me a year and a half ago, he was actually my grill boy for the barbecue event. But we gave away a couple of prizes, raffles. And so I have it's like a half of a 8.5 by 11, and it has a lot of information I asked for. I want your name, I want your phone number, I want your email address, I want your anniversary date, I want your birthday. And are you planning to buy any homes, or do you know anybody that does? I asked this question on the raffle form.
And you might win an Xbox.
And I tell them, listen, we are giving away 3 great prizes. We're giving away this amazing Cutco knife. We're giving away this
branded by yours truly,
and this amazing blanket that retails for $250,
straight out of Ecuador,
and a Yeti cooler.
Yeah,
and so we have 3, high-end gifts.
Yeah.
But
you gave it away at your
my Labor Day gift.
Okay.
And I had 115 people there roughly.
Did you guys have like a microphone or anything, or you just yelled?
I yelled and I was hoarse the next day.
Okay.
I really couldn't talk the day
after. Yeah.
But I tell them, I said, every adult can enter.
Yeah.
No kids can enter.
Yeah.
The form must be completely filled out or be ineligible. And I tell them at the party, and I have the relationship with these people who are coming saying, I'm doing this so I can spam you, but my spamming is tasteful. Yeah. But if you're running a business here, I like throwing parties for my people, but you still have to have a business objective behind it. I didn't go spend thousands of dollars on a party to come away with nothing. I came away with valuable contact information that's going to allow me to stay in relationship with these people, and these people are going to need somebody to help them buy and sell real estate
at some point.
At some point
in the next 5 years.
Exactly.
I bet 25 to 50% of those are going to need something.
100%. And I walked away from that party with 2 different conversations saying either I'm doing something or a friend of mine is doing something. And so whether they pan out to be business, who knows? Yeah. But 2 good conversations and 2 warm leads, I would think, that are that have a likelihood. So anyway, so that's it. Back to my follow-up plan. I sent out 4x8 calendars, branded calendars, magnet calendars. Sure. And then I do a
like November, December, or when do you usually do those?
I always order them at Keller Williams Mega Camp in August. Okay. I come out and I have to fill out the rest of a form, which I still have to do. They usually arrive in September. My goal is usually to get them out no later than the end of October.
Are you stuffing the envelopes yourself?
I have 5 children.
Hey, kids, you want beans and rice or you want pizza?
It's funny because they love to do it. So I have a small assembly line. Yeah. And so I will.
This one's written in crayon.
So I will export my database and then I will do a mail merge on.
Print the envelopes.
I actually get the envelopes ordered. The envelopes have already have my return address on them, but then I peel and stick labels for all the clients. And I usually send it I ordered 500 calendars. I will send out probably. I always end up with like 30 or 40 at the end. Sure. I'll send out 500, but I always get some back because addresses always go.
But then you update Contacts Plus, and then you're
exactly good for the next stamp. So ultimately, so I sent the calendars, and then I just started the last 2 years. I've been doing an end of year letter.
Okay.
I just recap the year, and at the end of the year, I look back to see anybody who had done a transaction, and I always email them the settlement statement.
Yeah. Oh, nice. For that year.
If you did business in 2024, then at the end of 2024, I will send you your settlement statement in case you might need this for your taxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether you bought or sold, I do it anyway, although the sellers are really the ones who are going to need those. The buyers don't often, but they might. Yeah. And so I send it to them.
Yeah. And then, I mean, if you bought or sold in the last 2 years, your capital gains, and if you bought and you had an origination fee, maybe you get a discount on part of your taxes. So I could see how that'd be very beneficial. You're doing a great job staying in touch with people. And I think that is lost on many real estate agents. They're so busy hunting that they don't ever nurture the relationship.
That I think that's true.
But they like the hunt.
I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, honey. I like a lazy boy.
I like waking up. I got my 19 things to do today. I do my 19 things, and I go home and I see my family. Right.
And I would say that probably like any real estate, I do get busy. There have been some months where I've missed my monthly market update, and then I have to do like 2 months worth of recap on my next email. Yep. So I'm not going to say that I'm 100% at everything. Like I already shared that, sometimes I get to my phone call, I'm like, I don't want to call that person. Yeah. I've tried calling that person like for the past 2 years and never answered, and I'm just whatever. But they haven't unsubscribed. They're still getting my emails, and, whatever. And so I would say that I do 80%. So I can lay out my game plan. What do they say? Create the plan. What do they say? Plan the work the plan. Yeah. And I work the plan, but I would give myself an 80%. I give myself a solid B+.
Well, I mean, that's right. That's B+ is above average for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty good. Anything else that you want to throw out that you do for clients or for your business? I should say for your business, but the only way that your business survives and thrives is really adding value to clients, right? And it can't be. I think a lot of people, real estate agents, loan officers as well, they confuse me telling you something with me actually adding value. You have to add value to that client, right? There needs to be something that they're interested in. It has to be something they can benefit from. It can't just be all the time. That's I think with social media, when all they post is everything about business. Pretty soon you're like, okay, great, you do business. Like give me something else. Give me entertainment. Give me information. Give me something of value.
I have probably of the 780 people that my email goes out to, I have on average between a 45 and a 55% open rate on my email. And because I put my life update on there, and I don't post that on social media. So if you want to know what happens in my world, and you want to see pictures of my really cute kids, who I fully leverage in this business, if you haven't heard already, is that
here's my kid stamping the envelope that you were going to receive on Tuesday.
Exactly. But here's the deal: is that this is what I think a lot of real estate people don't understand is that people don't care about real estate until they care about real estate.
Yeah.
And they buy and they sell once every 7 years on average, or whatever the number is. And I mean, you have to keep them entertained.
That's interesting.
And you have to provide value to them for a 6-year period. Now, hopefully over that 6 years, they send you a piece of business.
Yeah.
Or they send you maybe 2 pieces of business, right? As far as referrals go. But they're not actually going to transact. So once someone buys, it's a long game. And I was actually talking to my brother-in-law about this because as I was going to share earlier about the gifts. He said, "Wow, you gave away some really nice gifts," and I hope that this doesn't come across as insensitive or not very caring sign. But it's like, yeah, I threw a big party. I spent a lot of money. I gave good, nice gifts that we put out there. But if on average over the course of a year, I spend, I don't know, $30 or $40 per person on my database on average. Maybe my A lists are getting more like $80 or $90, and my B lists are getting a little less. But for every 25 people in my database, I'm getting 1 piece of business. I mean, the idea here is that you have to give them value. You have to give them something for them to hang around. And so, people who maybe come to my events maybe get a little more spent on them on average than the people who don't come to my events. But ultimately, my point is I'm happy to invest $20 and $30 into each person in my database on average, because again, even if that takes 7 years, what's 7 times 50?
450?
450, whatever the number is. I've put that much money into them, and I do a piece of business, but my margin's still way better than the person who's buying leads off of Zillow or paying some type of referral fee. And so.
I was in a.
Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money on your database.
So there's a couple points to that. Is number one, I have a coach one time that told me to get have a budget for gifting, a gifting budget, right? And however I use that's my discretion, whether I buy a straight up gift for somebody or whether I have an event or whatever it is, but I need to have a budget just to gift, right? Like, and almost like that. This is my business tithe, right? I have to. This has to go out to somebody other than me.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of interesting, and how you said it's $30 to $50, $30 to $80, whatever it is. But if you know that you're going to spend that. Right. On that person, then you're not freaking out over a $3,000 Labor Day party, right? You're not freaking out. You're like, well, this is part of what I'm doing. I got 115 people here, right? It's what it costs.
I think, by the way, just a little bit side note, I think events are the best because you're going to have 100 people there, and what is the one thing they have in common? Me. And you know what they all talk about? Me.
And that blanket.
And that blanket and those knives, okay? So I just think that the events are probably one of the most overlooked things. If you can get 50 or 60 or 70, even you get 12 people around a happy hour with some appetizers and you're the one central thing they have in common, it's a great way to spend your money.
Interesting.
I think. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obviously working, right? Yep. And we got about a minute and a half left here is all. So in that minute and a half, I'm going to ask you a question that I mean, you have a fantastic plan, but let's say you were to be put somewhere that you didn't know anybody, middle of whatever state you've never been to. How do you start? You have an awesome build and nurture system, but how would you tell an agent that's new, what do you do? Like what would you do in that scenario to start in real estate? Would you start in property management? Would you start on a team? Would you start at a builder? Would you start with going to the local Rotary Club? Like what was it that you would do?
Am I broke or am I not broke?
You do. You're broke.
I'm broke when I get there?
Well, you're broke-ish. You got a few bucks.
Got a few bucks.
Yeah. You don't have enough to go spend $10,000 on leads.
Okay. I wouldn't spend money on leads anyway. But I would say that I would fully understand that building out the database is what's going to build me a successful long-term successful business. Then I would backtrack that and say I need to be in and around people where I can have conversations, and each one of my each pillar of this database building enterprise needs to be focused, and it needs to be intentional.
Yeah.
So that would probably look like for me is I would probably go join a bunch of networking groups.
Okay.
And I would be
some BNIs,
some chambers of commerce, whatever you have to do, maybe whatever you're interested in, whatever case is, knowing that they're probably already going to be somewhat saturated with realtors because that's what we do. We network, right? Yeah. And then number 2, I would start probably a demographic farm.
Okay.
And I would target whatever you do already. If you go to church, you go to temple.
You're a motorcycle
rider,
a religious thing, a school thing, a kid thing,
whatever.
Whatever you're into. You're into pickleball. You got your pickleball database.
I think the danger behind demographic farming, especially when you get into those groups, is that you're not always intentional about getting people's information. So you have to figure out a way. How do I tap this group? And how do I get their information and build a relationship quickly enough that I can start marketing to them quickly? Especially
if you're new in that situation, you're like, when's your birthday? How many kids you have?
It can be weird. And you have to, and to some extent, you have to provide some value. And I don't know what that looks like in whatever group that looks like, but you can start hosting. If you're a mountain biker, start putting together some mountain biking trips, right?
Yeah,
and you have to get everybody's information so you can coordinate them all, right? Yeah. And then you follow up with them and start talking to them about real estate and see if you can have the opportunity to let them know what's happening in the market, whatever that might be.
The way you do that is you bring an Allen wrench and you steal everybody's seat ahead of time. And then what you do is if they fill out this card with all their data, you're giving a free seat giveaway. Yeah. It's way more comfortable to ride with a seat, fellas. Come on.
Something like that. So I would say some networking, some demographic farming to start building out that thing. And then I would then turn to my brokerage and I would probably start doing a ton of open homes. I would just try to do 3 a week every week.
Just go to all the other agents and say, Let me open house. Because
I feel that's going to put you in front of the most amount of people. Yeah. And then I would knock it out of the park with open houses. And I mean, I would be 100 doors in that neighborhood, circle dialing. If I can get enough lead time, mail. You
do it legit open houses. You're not faking it where you show up with cookies and soda and sit there for 3 hours.
Correct. Yeah. You have to do legit open houses. If you can, make the open house some type of event. Like if there's a local food pantry, like make the open house a drop off point. Like, hey, you should just knock the 100 doors around it with little brown paper bags, like your business card stapled to it, that says, hey, I'm collecting food at my open house over at 123 Main Street.
It's all going to Habitat for
Humanity.
It's all going to
Habitat or
Care and Share.
Care and Share. Yeah. And would you please consider putting a couple of cans of food in here and coming to check out my open house? And I would make that like a neighborhood event. And what you'll probably find is you'll find a seller in there before you find a buyer in there if you're targeting the neighborhood.
You're doing 3. Let's say you do go somewhere. You do 3 a week.
3 a week.
You hit 100 doors. You get 20 people from each one. All of a sudden, in week 1, you have 60 people with data.
Hopefully so. And you just have to build up that database as fast as you can. And I think one thing that a lot of realtors don't know when they get into this business, and one thing that I've struggled with because I'm not great at it, is when you become a realtor, you become a content creator. And you have to put together these monthly market updates. You have to be able to host an event, which in a way is creating content. You have to create, like my gift form fill out thing. It's like I created this form. It may not seem like much, but you are constantly in this mode of creating content and providing value to your people one way or the other. And I think that a lot of times especially if you're like me and you're not an artist and you're not a creative person, being a content creator can be kind of
difficult.
Can be difficult.
Yeah.
But ultimately, once you get those people, now you have to provide value to them with other content you're creating.
I was in it was like I don't want to call it a motivational thing, but there was a football player in there. His name was Reggie Rivers. Okay. And he did this, it was just across the street at the Doubletree Hotel. And he did this thing of just like how to understand your business. Right. I think Treasure's team had put it on, and there were a bunch of people were there from other companies. And I'm sitting there and listening to him. And one thing that stood out was really interesting. He said, he basically said, you're the same as everybody else in your business. Okay. Like nobody cares. And you're like, hold on a second, but you don't understand. I'm special. My parents have told me this my whole life. He said, look, and this really stuck out. He said, look, I don't care about a plumber until the toilet's clogged.
That's right.
He's like, and then I'm deeply concerned about knowing a good plumber at that point. And I want that plumber at my house. But guess what? He said, as soon as that toilet's not clogged anymore, I don't want him hanging out and eating sandwiches and talking about like have a good day. Here's your money, you know. Right. But I want to know who they are, and I need to be able to easily access them. But at the same time, I have to understand that a lot of people have plumbing abilities, right?
Correct.
So you look at that, like a realtor needs to be relevant, but you're not always highly important to the person.
Correct.
Right. So.
I think that's true. People don't care about real estate until they care about real estate. They love getting my calendar. The people really enjoy the calendar. I get a lot of compliments. I mean,
are there pictures of you, Daniel? Let's be honest.
There is a picture of me on the calendar. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a picture of your kids?
No.
Okay.
Those are in the emails.
Okay.
But I think it's very true, and I often get that question like, well, what makes you different? What makes you like what?
Yeah.
And it's like honestly, I could probably there are a lot of amazing realtors in this town. I could probably list off 10 who I legitimately think are better realtors than me.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have a license, I'd go work with them.
I would probably, I'd probably go hire them.
But here's the deal: is that what separates me, what makes me better, is the value that I provide the people in my world, and the amount of care that I have for the people in my world, and that is what makes me better than go pick your 10 top realtors in this city. They have great systems, they have great processes, they have great teams, whatever the case may be. They provide a high level of value as well. But what separates me from them is I have my people, and my people know, like, and trust me, and I'm good. But I think that there are places I can certainly improve my business. I look at other people's listings and go, wow, this guy freaking nailed the listing, right? I should do that on my listings.
The pictures are great. The advertising's great. The signs are great. The postcards are great, whatever it is.
They put a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of money in getting that listing at really top notch. And I think to myself, I could do that. Now, my listings are good. My listings are really good. And
but everybody's, there's always somebody in one area that you're like, oh, that's better than me. And in business, you got to constantly be looking for that, right? And meet people like yourself. So if I'm a real estate agent, and I'm newer, I want to align myself with people like you, people who are open, people who are willing to talk, willing to share, maybe mentor a little bit, or whatever the case may be, right? If I'm a newer realtor, I want to build my database, but I want to be around people who are successful. I want to be around people who take it serious, and this isn't just a part-time, let's see how it goes. Instead, it's like Daniel's feeding his family. And I don't know if you've ever tried to feed 5 kids, but it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap. I mean, you could go to Costco and Sam's Club. It still ain't cheap, right?
Exactly.
They eat a lot.
They eat a lot.
What happened to all the cereal? Dang! I just bought $80 of cereal 2 days ago. I got a bunch of little mouths running around. So I want to be around those kind of people if I'm a real estate agent. But I really thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You've given us a lot of information, a lot of good data, and a lot of stuff people can actually use, usable information, just like the value you provide to your clients. You've also provided to the real estate agents. So thank you very much.
I'm happy to be here.
Cool.
Happy to share.
Well, that wraps up another episode. Thanks for listening. Cut to the chase can be heard at agentsuccesspodcast.com. That wraps up another episode of Agent Success Podcast. Remember, you can find new episodes each week at agentsuccesspodcast.com. We hope you found the insights and best practices shared today truly valuable. And if you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, your success is a journey of learning and improvement. So let's keep hustling, thriving, and learning. Until next week, this is Tim Chase.